we have a very limited budget and
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We're still on dial-up.
Exactly. Don't you make fun of us. We have to put in our AOL disk before we get started.
I mean, by the time the screen loads, the top 25 has changed 3 times. Welcome back, sports fans, to yet another day in which we celebrate another SEC National Championship. Congratulations to the Florida Gators, who defeated the Houston Cougars 65-63 in a thriller of a game,
Oh,
Darren, in which
fantastic.
I think Florida only led for a little over a minute the entire game.
It wasn't even a minute. Yeah. I don't even think they got to the 90-second range, did they?
Yeah, once
incredible.
again, the SEC is hoisting another banner. So
Exactly.
congratulations to Florida. We've got more to say about that game, but let's start with baseball, Darren, because
Oh, yeah.
the season is in full swing and the SEC is doing rather well. Even though they're into that carnivore stage where they're playing other SEC teams and knocking each other back and forth in the polls. Right now, the Arkansas Razorbacks are holding on to that number 1 position, followed by Texas, LSU, Tennessee at 4, Georgia at 6, Ole Miss 7, the Crimson Tide at 10, Auburn at 12, Vanderbilt at 14, and the Oklahoma Sooners at 19. That's a pretty nice showing from the SEC for the top 25.
Yeah, it really is. And truthfully, like you said, Tennessee had really dug in and was holding on to a top spot, and then just had a horrible weekend against A&M. Vanderbilt in Florida, Vanderbilt had dropped down to just inside the top 25, just outside of the top 20. Go to Florida, who, in Florida's defense, is not having a typical Florida baseball season. They are having some issues, but still, I don't care how far down a Florida baseball team is. I don't think anybody expects to go to Florida and sweep a series. You might pull off 2 wins, but you typically aren't going to go to Florida and sweep a series. And Vanderbilt did, and just pulling off that, jump them up 5-6 spaces. You've got a lot of that going on where we can see the shifts be pretty dynamic week in and week out right now, just because, like you said, a pitching staff gets hot, bats take off, a lineup gets hot, and the next thing you know, a team that was coming in on a winning streak plays another team that isn't necessarily bad, but it's not on the same winning streak, and they've lost 3 games, on the road, and that knocks you down.
Yeah, and Florida will be back. They're just going to have to tap a little deeper into the Gatorade money, but they're going to be back.
Everybody talks about buckets of money. Theirs are Gatorade buckets. They have the 5-gallon coolers of money.
That's no exaggeration.
Yeah, that's exactly
true
right.
Story.
Yep, that's right.
Moving on from SEC men's baseball, let's go into the women's national championship where unfortunately South Carolina did not come home a winner.
No.
Dawn Staley and her crew, there's no other way to say this other than that. They just had their lunch handed to them.
Absolutely.
Connecticut was the much better team.
Yep.
I think we learned in the 82-59 win that Connecticut has so many good players, but Paige Beckers, I think she's right up there with Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, agree completely.
An incredible talent. It showed. So congratulations to UConn. South Carolina will be back. I think they had a major portal signing today. The girl from Florida State, who was the leading scorer last year. I think she signed
last year.
With South Carolina.
Yep.
But what does this say, Darren, about SEC women's program? For your best team to get beat by roughly 30 points, and the other teams in the conference are still trying to catch up to that team that just got beat so bad. What's that say about the SEC women's side of things?
Well, I think regardless of your opinions on Gino Auriemma, I think that also makes a little bit of a statement about UConn as well. And even though they may not have been to the consistent year in and year out level that we were accustomed to a few years ago, he still obviously can build a program filled with superstars. That even if he doesn't recruit 5 stars, he knows how to turn them into 5 stars. And so I think you have to give a little bit of props to UConn. But I also think you do have to ask that question about the conference when you see LSU losing to UCLA, then you see South Carolina losing to UConn, and like you said, it was not. I mean, you could see the frustration on Dawn Staley's face. This was not. I think, although she would never say it, I think you watch her body language. Just a few minutes after the start of the fourth quarter, she knew what was. It was about. It was just getting through the game. We need to. How do we minimize the damage at this point? We're not going to win. How do we minimize the damage? And I don't know if it's a lack of commitment from some of the SEC schools um, in building their program, committing the resources. I think you do have to be realistic and honest about that, because the higher your floor, the higher your ceiling, and across the conference. That's an absolute truth, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about football, women's basketball, lacrosse, hockey, whatever. The higher the floor, the higher your ceiling. That's just a truth in athletics when you look at it from a conference perspective. So, I mean, obviously, there's still some building to be done. Um, is the number one thing it tells you, because, like we said, this was not just Florida lost that game last night or Monday night. Florida lost that game. Okay, man, they gave it everything they had. They lost. The guy hits a 3-pointer at the end of the game. If it goes the other way, you're looking at that going, but man, how good is that Florida program? With a loss like this, I think you got to be honest about having a good ways to go, not only as a program but as a conference.
And I'm not saying I don't think the Big East overall women's basketball
Right,
is a strong conference. UConn though is obviously this at least this team
right,
head and shoulders above everybody. I think there are 4 women's programs in the SEC that are really pumping money into their programs: South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, and Texas.
yeah, agree
I think we
completely.
can look at those, and you might make a case for Oklahoma. They had a strong season. It looks like they're bringing a lot of that nucleus back next year, so
Hmm.
they're going to be a contender. But even when they didn't weren't able to hold their own against the likes of UConn.
Right,
So
absolutely.
I think I'm interested to see if UConn maintains this level, because you got a player like Paige Beckers, who we use that term generational talent. You could make the case for her
Yeah,
being one of those.
absolutely.
They're going to have good players. He's going to get more players. Will they be at that level again, or will South Carolina, LSU, Texas, uh, Tennessee, will they be able to close the gap? So I think we do have schools pumping money into the women's program.
Hmm.
It's a matter of, well, I think you hit it on the head. Gino's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah,
Love him or
exactly.
hate him, he's a Hall of Fame coach. And being able to get the talent from a portal is one thing. You can get the money, but can you blend that talent together? That's the big question.
And you take the Final Four and remove UConn from it, and I know this is a horrible if then thing, but just looking at it from where you're measuring, how you're measuring South Carolina, how you're measuring LSU, Tennessee, Texas are working their way up, but you take this Final Four and remove UConn and drop any other team in it. I don't think any other team, pick somebody else out of the Elite Eight and move them into the Final Four and remove UConn. I don't think there's anybody in that picture that you look at it and go, oh, that's a 20 point, that team's 20 point better than this South Carolina team. There's not a chance.
No. I think if you take UConn out of the picture, South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina wins another national
Yep,
championship.
absolutely.
On the men's side of things, though, it was a much more competitive game going
Oh, yeah.
down to the wire. Heartbreaking loss
Yep,
for
yep.
Houston and how that game went down. But give give credit to Florida, who continued to battle back the resilience. They were at one point, I think, 16 minutes and change left in the second half. They were down by 12.
Yep.
They continued to fight. They continued to hang in there. Remarkable win for the Gators.
Yeah.
And you look from a defensive standpoint, both offenses, the field goal percentage under 40%. So
Yeah.
kudos to the defense
Yeah.
on both teams. But looking at this game and all the, I really thought Houston was going to win this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, especially when the league got to 12. Because Houston, like we've talked about before, Houston plays heavy.
mhm.
And if they can build that kind of lead and for lack of a better term, just kind of sit on you, you think they're just going to do their thing, and that's what's going to happen, truthfully.
Yeah. Well, Walter Clayton Jr., they held him scoreless in the first
Yep.
half. And this is a guy that had posted two 30-plus point games
Mhm.
in the Elite Eight and on. Only one other player in college basketball history did that, and that was Larry Bird,
Yeah.
the great Larry Bird. So Clayton was having an incredible tournament.
Yeah.
They shut him down in the first half, but the Richard kid comes
Yeah.
out with 14 points off the bench and really kept Florida close in that first half.
And you also have to give Clayton props. Yes, he was cold. Yes, he had no points, but he also had 7 assists in the first half.
Good
So
point.
he knew that that they were coming after him defensively. He knew that he was off, and so he still was, where he would usually shoot the ball, he would dish, and he had 7 assists in that first half. And you're talking about the mark of a great ball player. That's one of them. To know your limits, know where you are, be able to read the moment and say, okay, me shooting 45 times is not going to help my team, but people still coming at me because for the last 2 games I've been, just Larry Bird numbers. That's all. They're still going to be coming at me, so I got to get the ball in somebody else's hands to let them see what they can do. That's, to me, that's a mark of a truly great player.
Great players find ways to contribute.
Exactly.
And he did that. Interesting fact about this: Florida is the first team. I saw this posted on Twitter. First team in the modern era to win a national championship without a top 100 recruit on the roster.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
No, that's pretty incredible. And I think, truthfully, that tells us 2 things. Number one, it tells us a lot about Todd Golden and his staff. Number 2, that they truly are developing talent. And so, my next thing that I'm going to say, it tells me, or it tells us, is not meant as a slight in any way. I want to establish that on the front end. I think it tells a lot about Todd. It tells a lot about Todd Golden and his staff. But also, I think it tells us a little bit about the where we are with the game and what the transfer portal and NIL looks like. Because even if you don't have any top 100 recruits and 4 of your 5 starters started somewhere else and were able to transfer in as identified talent, still that you coached up. Not going to take that away at all, that you coached up. But when you can afford, for lack of a better term, some recruiting misses because you can turn around in the next cycle and go grab some recruiting, someone that someone else has recruited and pull them to you in the transfer portal, that's going to allow you a lot more opportunity to get to a national championship without a top 100 recruit.
Well said. Well said. It's become such a business now, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
The money hanging on to the players you have, because teams are going to come calling, as well as you looking at players on other teams and what's it going to take to get that player here. And so we're in the era now where college basketball players have agents, and these colleges, coaches, they're working through agents. Who would have thought?
And I think we've been very excited about the opportunities that players have that maybe they did not have before. And it's definitely been an imbalance in the past based on the fact that coaches, as you've stated, the coaches transfer portal never closes. So to let players adjust when the coach that recruited them leaves, I'm for correcting that imbalance, but I'm not going to say anything other than this one sentence. Jalen Carey, shame on you. All right, that's all I'm saying. I'm not going to develop that story any further. Go look it up. Jalen Carey, shame on you. That's all I'm saying. With all that being said about the transfer portal, everybody knows your name. That's all I'm saying. So
let it out, Darren. That's part of the healing process.
exactly,
Just
exactly.
putting your grief out there, putting a spotlight on it, and again, we've talked about this in previous episodes. In some ways, the NCAA brought this upon themselves.
Oh,
Some
absolutely.
of the rules were so stinking oppressive,
Yeah, yeah.
where you couldn't buy a player a meal.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
come on, and so the pendulum has swung to the other extreme right
Yep,
now from
absolutely.
where it was, and there were things that the NCAA it shouldn't have happened the way it happened.
Oh, absolutely.
There should have been some common sense, some leeway there,
Mm-hmm.
and so now I think the pendulum is going to swing back, and we're going to get some sort of semblance of balance here. But right now, it's still, as we've talked about before,
Yeah.
completely chaotic.
And I agree completely with all of that, and I'm hoping you're correct in that the pendulum does swing back, and we do find some form of balance because the chaos that we're living in today isn't necessarily the balance that you're looking for. Compared to a coach losing 10 of his games because a player became ineligible because somebody bought him Taco Bell. Stupid. All right. I mean, but that's not necessarily balanced by the chaos that we're in today. That doesn't necessarily work. So I hope you're right that we've swung both ways now. Hopefully we can find some time in the middle. And honestly, I don't say all that about the transfer portal to take away from Todd Gold and this Florida team and what they did at all. Last night was such an incredible game. They were so impressive. And just like the things we've talked about, with Walter Clayton Jr. being off, but then at least he found 11 points in the second half. Will Richard being a beast and having 18 points, and Alex Condon, man, that dude, he didn't, he only had 12 points, which is not necessarily the end of the world for a big man, but the coach, I'm sure, would have wanted him to have a few more. But man, that dude is such a presence on the floor. I enjoy watching him play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The bigs last night on both sides
Yeah,
were fun to watch.
yeah,
There were some
absolutely.
battles, absolute battles going on there. Kelvin Sampson, Houston will be back.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Congratulations to Todd Golden for being the second youngest head coach to win a men's national championship, next to Jimmy Valvano, 1983. I think Valvano was
Nice.
37, Golden's 39. Monumental accomplishment for the Florida Gators. A part of you feels for Kelvin Sampson at his age. Was he 70 years
71, I
old?
think they said. Yeah.
71. Uh, he will be back with another strong team. But you have to wonder, this is going back to Guy Lewis coaching at Houston.
Yeah.
What is going on here when Houston gets to this point and just still trying to get over the hump?
And looks so dominant until it gets to that moment. And
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, you talk about what's going on. How insane was that last 10, 12, 15 seconds, whatever? I mean, that was in just insane. And Emmanuel Sharp, number 21 for Houston, man, we've watched a lot of ball and love watching. I mean, we've talked about it on here. Anything from football, basketball to Australian football, you name it. I watch it. I don't remember feeling as bad for an athlete watching a ball game as I did for him last night because his last 45 seconds was just awful because he was the one dribbling down the right hand side that who's the player we've talked about 15 times from Florida. Anyway, reached in from
Clayton.
help side. Yeah, Clayton
Yeah.
reached in from help side D, slapped the ball. It ends up going off of Sharp's knee and out of bounds.
Yeah.
And then you come down, have that last play, and I understand what he was trying to do. when he let go of the ball because he didn't want to travel. But you gotta, I don't know, you gotta yell or something. I mean, who knows what you would do in that situation? So I'm definitely not being negative or casting aspersions in any way. But it was hard to watch because you just your heart broke for him. That was tough to watch.
And it's not all on him. You
Oh,
could
right,
make a you could point out other times earlier in the game where players didn't do what they were supposed to do. You could make the
absolutely,
case: what if that pass had gotten to him a split second sooner, a
absolutely,
millisecond sooner? I
absolutely.
think he was setting up for the shot, and initially it was there, but Clayton made such a quick defensive response
Yes,
that I think that caught Sharp off guard.
agree.
And so, we like to sit here on the couch and say, "Oh, why didn't he just pump fake it and go up?"
Right,
But
exactly.
we're not out there on the court in the middle of the action like he was.
And
He's a
knowing that
great,
the game clock is
yeah,
going down. Yeah, yeah,
he's a great player. Uh,
yeah. Oh,
Unfortunately,
absolutely.
those moments happen, but certainly it's a collection of moments
Yeah.
throughout a game that lead to a team losing, not just one moment.
And speaking of that, since we are an SEC podcast, let's be honest for our friends that may be Houston fans. The amount of social media attention to the well, what if that goaltending would have been called? You can make a list about last night's referees from both sides. You have grievances, well, no matter which bench you were sitting behind. You can, but if you want to find something where 2 points made a difference, instead of hanging on to that goaltending, which was very early in the game, I might focus on Houston shooting less than 65% from the free throw line. There's where 2 points could have been made up. I wouldn't worry about a goaltending call. just me, my 2 cents worth. But
Yeah, the free throw line should be easy money. It's an uncontested
absolutely,
shot. You get to take your time. Definitely free throw shooting. One of the things that bugged me, and I have some grievances about officiating
yeah.
on the men and women's side throughout this tournament. One of the things that bugged me about that goaltend call is how the rules are set up where certain things are reviewed and other
Mhm.
things aren't. And
Yeah.
how do three you have to be the best officials to officiate a national championship game.
Hmm.
So these guys are the cream of the crop.
Absolutely.
And how does nobody, not a single one of those guys, see that or
Yeah.
think, wait a second? So, and there were other cases in games, men and women's games, where we could ask the same thing, like, like the LSU UCLA women's game where the ball clearly went off the LSU player right in front of Mulkey in the bench,
Yep.
and we're all sitting there like, that was pretty obvious, and there's an official
Yeah.
staring at it right there.
Exactly.
So I don't know what to do about officiate. You got that human element, and
Oh,
like
of course.
we talk about players making mistakes, officials make mistakes. It's frustrating.
And is it just me? And if it was just me, tell me. That's okay. But did it feel like at the start of the second half, and not just necessarily Florida, because if you look at total fouls, first half versus second half, not just Florida, Houston picked up more than their share. But did it almost feel like at the start of the second half, those three guys were in a room together during halftime, and they're like, "Wow, maybe we let them play too much." I think maybe we should do it a little bit different at the start of the second. And all of a sudden, first half guys are flopping and lying all over the floor. There are times where it looked like a bomb went off down under the basket, and there's five guys laying down, and a whistle's not blown. And then the start of the second half, a guy puts a hand on another guy's hip, and all of a sudden it's like, what in the world are we doing? Because it really felt, especially the first 5 to 8 minutes of the second half, it felt a whole lot different of being officiated than the first half to me.
Your point's well taken. The first half, it seemed they let them play.
Yeah.
Let's not insert ourselves as the center of attention.
Hmm.
Let's keep the
Hmm.
attention on the players. Something, it seems like something, like as you said, was discussed at halftime
Yeah.
because we were shooting free throws, I believe, with 14 minutes to go in the game. We were
Oh yeah,
already in the
absolutely.
bonus.
And
So what
I
changed?
believe Florida was already in bonus plus by the 14 minute. Yeah, I think they got to bonus plus before Houston did.
It, it makes you wonder. And yes, you need the officials because there are rules in the game,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't need the officials to be center stage in a national championship game.
And either control the game or control the pace of the game. We don't need either one of those.
Right. Well said. I agree. Congratulations again to the Florida Gators on their third
That's right.
basketball championship.
Their first non-Billy Donovan's national championship. And I meant to say something during when we were talking about the women's national championship.
No,
And
that train has already left the station, Darren.
this
You
applies to
you
all
you, you
SEC.
can't go back. You can't go back. We're moving on.
Applies to all SEC. Uh, I personally enjoyed the UConn fans very loudly chanting SEC, SEC, as at the point at which UConn was up by 30. And to me, all it did honestly was make me smile because it told me just how good our conference is and how dominant our conference is. Because I can guarantee you, if the roles were reversed and South Carolina would have been up by 30 over UConn, South Carolina fans would not be chanting Big East, Big E. They wouldn't have cared. So thank you so much for the compliment, UConn. You're spot on. SEC, SEC. We'll see you next year.
Darren, they're still sore. They're still sore about their men's team getting beat by the Florida Gators of the SEC.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And watching Hurley have a meltdown walking to the locker room.
Oh, most epic of meltdowns. I mean, yeah, on a scale of 10, that was a 12, an embarrassing 12, not just a good, not a good 12.
Yeah. My goodness.
Yeah, agree completely. Oh, it just decided not to work. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so now we're just wrapping it up.
I think that's. Is there anything else? I think that's it.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape.
Well, since we've alienated any potential Big East listeners on the show, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Say it louder for the people in the back, Darren.
That's right. We don't like Hurley. Oh, wait, no, that's not what you were saying.
Hey, do us a favor. If we haven't offended you up to this point, hit that subscribe button. Or if we have and you just want to keep being offended, hit that subscribe button.
That's
we'll do our best to keep our end of the bargain. We appreciate you subscribing to the show and telling other people about it. If you subscribe, you're always notified when new episodes drop. They usually drop every Tuesday unless there's a national championship game on a Monday or some extenuating circumstance. You can pretty much count by Tuesday sometime they'll be out, except in those cases. So tell a friend. Keep watching sports, SEC sports particularly. We're in the middle of baseball and softball. Some great games going on.
Absolutely.
And until next Tuesday, y'all take care.
Have a great week.